It is the day I've been waiting for all summer long. Today we are making tomato sauce. I've been growing these Aroma and San Marzano tomatoes all summer and they are finally ready. They were picked a couple days earlier just so they could decant and fully ripen, and now we're going to be making them into fresh tomato sauce. Our first step after washing all of our tomatoes is going to be going through any and discarding any that are a little too far gone, and then removing any blemishes on some that are still viable. They're a good tomato, but they just have some ugly bits that don't look necessarily right. You wouldn't want that in your sauce. So I'm just going through each and cutting off anything that doesn't look good. As long as it's not moldy, you're good to keep using it. So I'm just going to go through all of these until I have everything processed. Alright, so now we're moving outside to our propane range. This is where we're not cooking the tomatoes, we're simply warming them up, giving them a little bit of a boil so we get any of that excess water pulled out of them, and this is going to help those skins fall off really easily, so when we run it through our food mill, it doesn't have a hard time. This is only going to be done for about 5 to 10 minutes at not a super high temperature, just to ensure that they're blistering and we get all that extra water out. And here is my cat River that was helping us outside. Now it's time to pop over to the garden to pick our fresh basil for our tomato sauce. So this basil is growing in with our Roma and San Marzanos in a raised bed. I've purposely haven't been picking it for the past 2 weeks just to ensure that we have enough for our pasta sauce. And really, all I'm looking for is something that isn't blemished and doesn't have any brown spots on it. That piece was perfect. It was so beautiful. Everything smells so fragrant, and this is going to add fresh basil to our sauce just to give it a little oomph. So these are our tomatoes after about 10 minutes of boiling with maybe a cup of water at the bottom of this pot. We just added a little so the bottom tomatoes wouldn't burn, and you can see the skins are falling right off of these. They are ready for the food mill and they'll be super easy to separate. So my dad's just straining off any excess water, that way our tomatoes are nice and juicy. We get a meaty sauce instead of a watery one. And as you can see, once we put these through the mill, we were rocking and rolling. This worked so well. This is our first time using this food mill. It's from Weston Foods, and it separated the seeds and the skins beautifully. We didn't have any seeds in our sauce at all. Maybe the occasional one that split in half from the mill itself, but it was a very silky consistency. You can see how meaty it was when we mixed this up together. It was the perfect tomato sauce. So that's all the skins and the seeds that came out. They were super dry, so it pulled all the moisture out as well, which was fantastic. And this is our silky sauce. Now, I found this mill incredibly easy to use. It worked efficiently and fast, so if you were doing a big batch, you could really get through it quite quickly. And this is our finished tomato sauce at the end. Now, the only thing that we're going to add to this is some kosher salt, and you'll see this in a second. We really seasoned today, so we gave it a taste at the beginning. You could taste it was very fruity. It was just tomato, and then we added kosher salt in, gave it a mix, and tasted it again. I couldn't tell you how much we actually ended up using in the end, but it wasn't a lot. It was just enough to give it a bit of flavor. Now that our sauce is ready, it's time to actually start canning. So here we have some freshly sterilized jars. We just used the sterilize function on our dishwasher. It was a little bit longer. We were kind of waiting for it, so we had to reheat up the sauce. But anyways, you can just boil them in hot water for 10 minutes and they'll be nice and sterilized. So here I've added about 2 leaves of those fresh basil leaves that I picked from the garden, and my dad is just filling these with sauce. He's making sure to leave a little bit of headspace. I believe for this recipe it was 1/2 inch just to make sure that it has enough room for expansion during canning. And I have to say, these funnels that we're using, the mason jar ones specifically, if you can get a kit that comes with the tongs, the funnel, it comes with that tamper tool to just make sure you have the right amount of headspace and to make sure you get any air bubbles out. Fantastic. I would highly recommend getting one of these if you're new to canning. It makes it so much easier. There's much less of a mess, and you have everything you need. Now my dad's just using the small tamper tool for canning to ensure there's no air bubbles stuck under those basil leaves, and he's wiping the rims down with, I believe, a 50-50 vinegar and water ratio just to ensure the top of the lids are clean, there's no food particles left on it, and we'll get a perfect seal. Now after this, we're just adding our sterilized canning lids. They've been in boiling water for about 10 minutes, and we're just going to tighten these to finger tight. You don't need to overcompensate. The canner will do its job itself, and then they're ready to go in. Here's our tomato sauce all ready to go into the canner. All I've done is just wipe the outside to ensure there's no tomato sauce that might have dribbled down it, and now my dad's gonna put it into our pot. Yes, this is a pressure canning pot, but no, we are using the water boiling method. All you're gonna do is ensure that your water is above your canning lids, and you're gonna bring it up to a boil. We just used this pot because it was the only one big enough that we had, and it has that beautiful lifter. So once our pot got up to a steady boil, I put the lid on and set a timer for 30 minutes. After it was done, I turned the heat off and let them sit for about 5 minutes just so they weren't too hot to pull out, and from here they're going to finish processing on our counter. So here is our finished product cooled out of the canner. So you can see there's this weird white film on it. I think it's mineral deposits just because we have hard water. We're on a well system. And our tomatoes are nice and sealed. These are going to be sat on their side. What I ended up doing was putting them sideways with just a cloth over top for 24 hours, and then tomorrow what we're going to do is take the rings off and lift them just by the lid, do it over top of a counter make sure there's a towel down so God forbid if it's not sealed it won't explode all over the place. And if that lid holds and it doesn't release, then that means that we are good to go. These have sealed properly, and we've got perfect tomato sauce that'll last for about a year and a half in our pantry that we can enjoy all winter long. Alright, so this is our finished product after 24 hours. I just used a little bit of vinegar to wipe off that mineral deposit buildup on the outside, and now we have beautiful tomato sauce to enjoy all winter. Thanks so much for watching.